Mitch McGovern a chance this week, Don?
Yeah, look, he'll come into consideration. We've got match committee tomorrow, I think, tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, obviously with Taylor not being available, he's an AFL player.
He'd be the logical one?
Yeah, he would be.
What about
not saying he's in, but
yeah.
he'll be in the mix. Yeah, look, it was for a combination. I mean, obviously he missed the 10 weeks. We brought him straight in after the 10 weeks out because Taylor was out, suspended. But the reality was we were probably pushing him into AFL games probably slightly ahead of where he was ready to go, and then he hurt the shoulder as well and missed another week, so we just felt it was more just give him some conditioning, give him a game back in the sample for confidence around the shoulder, but also just some general match fitness and form.
Is it a choice between Mitch and Elliot Himmelberg? Because both play that 12-4 role, and Elliot's been in pretty good form.
Yeah, well, Elliot's name I'm sure will be thrown up. He's a young guy. We've been really happy with his progress in certainly the last half of the year. He's a pretty raw when he arrived at the footy club last year, and he started to really mature and develop, which is really positive for his career. Now, whether it's games this year or whether we let him go, to get another pre-season under him for next year, we'll decide that at match committee. But he's certainly, his form recently has been good. He's competing really hard ahead of the ball, and we like what we see.
Daniel Tully, how did he train today?
Yeah, well, Daniel's still a bit troubled by that well, it's probably a combination of calf / leg at the moment, but he's just where he got it was just an awkward spot. So there's a bit of bone bruising in there. His calf's still a problem. We'll have to see how he goes tomorrow, but he's probably he's got some work to do. Put that one.
Seedsman and Knight as well. Are they?
Well, they're both looking pretty positive. Yeah, so we're pretty positive on both those guys, and they obviously we'll train tomorrow and assess it from there.
I was going to say, with the case with Tales, he's obviously been carrying this leg now for a few weeks, and Bradley's soldiering through while finals are still a chance. Now that finals aren't a chance, is it a case of just putting him on ice?
Look, not really. I mean, if he's available, we'll play him. That's the same with all of our guys. Our attitude for the last two games is, we'll play to win. I mean, it's as much as we look at the season and go, I think we're still an outside chance if things go really well, and we'd have to win really convincingly. But we still want to play to win and finish the year really strongly. Unless there's a situation where for someone individually, it's not worth the risk of continuing to push them on, and it's not going to be, they're not going to be able to perform to that level. If that's the case, we won't play them. But if they're available and ready to go, we'll play them.
Don, you've had a great record as coach, but the first season that you're going to miss the finals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've started the process already, but do you look ahead to the next pre-season and think, right, what are we going to do differently so that we don't have it happen again next year?
Well, that sort of process is now starting. Obviously we're facing 2 odd weeks left, and then we're exiting players around off-season programs and those sorts of things, and so we'll start to now think through that. Of what have we learnt through this year? How do we want to structure up our pre-season next year? There's an extra week at Christmas time for us to consider in terms of our build, and obviously a lead into JLT. The components of our program we really want to focus on. What we learnt from this year's training to make sure that we give ourselves the very best chance next year to bounce back to playing the sort of footy consistently that we haven't been able to do this year.
Would you scrap the camp? No more camp?
Oh, well, in terms of the camp we went on last year, we may have a camp, but it may be a different camp. It'll probably be more a physical performance camp than, say, the one we did last year.
And what about, I know a lot of noise, I don't know how much you listen to it, but would you consider switching captains, or will you stick with Texty?
I haven't even thought about it, to be honest, Tom.
Is it frustrating, though? It's been a constant narrative for the whole year around Taylor and the captaincy. Has it been an unnecessary noise?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think in the case of Taylor, he's come into the season underdone. He played some games. We had to back him away, give him a mini pre-season to get him back going. And look, in fairness to Tex, to be honest, he soldiered on really bravely under lack of a pre-season. And I don't care who you are and how good a player you are, if you don't get that pre-season solid base under you, it's just the game now is too difficult to try and do that. And he's found that out. But I'm full of admiration for what he's done for the team and the care he's shown for the team to put himself out there continually to play under what's been a little bit difficult at times for him, and continue to lead the way he has. So in terms of the decision around all those sorts of things, leadership groups, that'll happen in the next pre-season.
You were pretty vocal about advantage in the mental space. So if the camp doesn't focus on that sort of thing, how do you see yourself getting an advantage in 2019?
Well, we'll keep building. I haven't said we're going to go completely away from that space. I think every club in the AFL now is looking at how do we actually help with our players' mental resilience, well-being, all those sorts of things. The approach we take might be different, but certainly be a component of our program. Probably the level of focus. As I said, every year we sit down and look at the time we have available with the players, the components of our program we really need to get improvement in, and then we allocate the pie out according to minutes, and those minutes will be allocated based on what we think is going to give us biggest bang for a buck to get ourselves ready to perform really well next season.
What's your gut feel? Sorry, what's your gut feel on? Do you have to change however what in your?
Well, we'll talk about what it looks like from a game viewpoint. I mean, in terms of the way the game's now being played. So the game evolves and changes, and so our style and system will probably be the first thing we'll consider. Do we need to make any tweaks to that? Do we need to make tweaks to how we're training some of those components of our style or system? Do we need to make tweaks to our conditioning strength program around that as well? So it's a big bucket that we look at, and then we allocate the time out. So, I guess we'll do some analysis of our full season, understand where we think we've actually maintained a level or gone forward, or areas where we've dropped away, and then focus on those accordingly. So it's a generic answer, I know, but it's at this point we haven't sort of sat down, done the analysis and the review to be able to go, no, this is where we need to spend our time. And once we do that, we'll allocate it accordingly.
Is there motivation to sort of put a dent in the Kangaroos' final chances this Sunday?
No, our motivation is not to do with that. Our motivation is to get back, to play that consistent footy that we have played. Sorry, we haven't been able to play consistently. And our best, we've sort of said in the last last month or so, we've had some close results. We played some good footy, but we haven't done it for long enough against the best teams. And we play a side who's desperate to play finals, and they're going to come over with a real purpose. But for us, it's about finishing the year really strongly, and competing to a level that we know is going to create winning and build what we want into the next pre-season, into the next season.
My bad. How much does that mean? So how much does that mean to finish the year with momentum?
Well, I think it's important for us now. I mean, we're sitting at 10 and 10. We've got 2 games to go, and if we can win the last 2 games, for instance, it puts ourselves in a mind space of going, well, the season, as much as if we don't play finals, it becomes not what we ideally would want at the start of the year. At the start of the year, we were sitting here with expectations to be better than that. We haven't achieved those, so we look at it and go, what are we responsible for? What can we be accountable for? And what ultimately do we need to change? Given that we're going to be working with, in the majority, the same guys next year, we'll come back with a clear plan to how we can do it better.
Is it worth trialling a couple of youngsters in the next?
Well, that's a possibility as well. And it's not so much trialling. I mean, I'm not into giving games to players. If players have earned them and we think there's an opportunity to expose them to AFL level, we'll consider doing that. Yep.
Darcy Foldy played in defence in the sample on the weekend. Was that just because you had obviously McGovern and Himmelberg playing in the forward line, or you just wanted to see how Darcy goes in a different role? Yeah, we're keen to look at Darcy in a slightly different role, and we know he's played forward for us this year. He played back in some of the under-18s as well, so we know he's got that capacity, and I was really happy with his game down back. It's also good for a young player at times who's been forward to just go and play back, and it becomes a bit simpler. You're working off a man, competing, just defending and generating some balls. So I was really happy with what he did on the weekend. And again, it sort of also helps him long term, because then we've got a player we know who can play forward and back. And so exposing him at that level to playing back was good for his development.
Of injuries and lack of continuity, has that been the biggest factor in the drop-off this year, do you think, or is there something more?
No, I think that's been a reasonably significant component of it, to be honest. I mean, we've sort of, if I look at our board, I think we'll end up with this week 2 guys or maybe 3 guys who've played every game, and we won't have had that many guys who have played more than say 20. So we sort of, it's been a component, and that's just hasn't allowed, and it comes into training as well. So the fact that they're not playing is one thing, but then they're not able to train, so they're not able to build the skill base, the fundamentals of the game that we really require at the highest level. So it's been a component. And it's something which obviously we want to make sure we don't repeat next year, and we don't have that. And hopefully a bit of it's luck and a bit of it's obviously our preparation, and we get that all right and we give ourselves the best chance next year.
Who's accountable for that one then, Don?
What's that?
Who's accountable for that?
Some of it is, as we've spoken about previously, some of it was some program bits, other is just footy. Again, it's hard to, when a guy gets a broken rib or a guy gets a kick in the leg, it's hard to go, well, that's anything other to do with just footy and just what happens.
So the ones you can prevent, I suppose, if there is a training program, is there,
yep.
Is it you or Brett, or how do you?
Well, it's across the breadth of the whole program. So some of it's the timing of the program. It's when we introduce new things into the program. It's the loads. It's the the continuity. It's the bill for certain players. Some of it's how we deal with the off season. There's a whole range of factors. There's not one key component or one key person that necessarily go, well, that's their total responsibility. It's a wide ranging factor, and as I said, in each situation it's quite different. We had unfortunate situations. So this year we say Brad Crouch, who we haven't been able to get out onto the paddock consistently. He's now gone in for surgery. Now he's a guy that we would hope be ready day one of pre-season, ready to go and give himself the best chance to play AFL and play consistently good AFL, which he can. Now he's one example.
You think you will be?
That's expectation at the moment, yeah.
So he'll be off at the start of this pre-season next
Should be. Should be. That's what we're being told. His program leads him towards being ready to go day one, which is perfect for him. Because again, given his history, the ability for him to participate in a full pre-season gives him the best chance to get those games that we know, and we've seen the footy he's capable of playing last year and previous years. So look forward to getting Brad back out there.
I was going to say, just to finish, Brady Smith, must be nice to have at least that box ticked going into the end of the season. Yeah,
look, it was fantastic for Brodie. I think it's a really good example of a guy who, as much as it was really tough for him last year, when he, at the time of the year that it happened, to know that he was going to miss out on something, potentially pretty special was pretty heartbreaking for him. But the diligence he's shown and the professionalism he showed around his recovery and rehab, that's allowed him to get back to playing. And the positive mindset he had around that was really important. He was almost like, I'm going to play, I'm determined to play, and I'm going to set my sights on playing. And then the work he did around it is a really great example to all of our guys to exactly what you can get if you focus hard on things and you're prepared to do the work. And he's done it. And on the weekend, it was great to see Brodie Smith back off the halfback, bouncing around, doing what he does, and that's the sort of player we know he is. And great return, a great reward for the effort he put in.